Hello everyone, my name is Roya and today I'm telling you all about the books that I read in March. Once again, I went the whole first half of the month not finishing any books, so I didn't do a part one once again. So this is, instead of being part one and part two, this is just one part and it's all the books I read in the month. There are 8 of them, I believe, and I'm actually going to start with the ones that I liked the most just because not a lot of the books that I read this month are ones that I have that many thoughts on at all. So the first book I'm going to talk to you about today is Only This Beautiful Moment by Abdi Nazimian. This is a book that I got from NetGalley, so thank you so much NetGalley for approving me for this. It actually comes out in May, and at that time I'm going to film a full video review of this. So for those of you who do not know, Abdi Nazimian is definitely one of my favorite authors because not only does he write about mostly, you know, gay Iranians, but his writing and storytelling is really, really good, and all of his books have like just so much emotion in them that you can really connect to the characters. And just so this book follows Mood, who is a gay Iranian teenager in the United States, and he goes to Iran with his dad to visit his grandfather, and it's basically about him discovering that there is a queer community in Iran and what it's like to be gay in Iran versus the United States. And then every second chapter actually follows his dad as a young man leaving Iran during the Iranian Revolution, and then every third chapter actually follows his grandfather growing up in the United States, not knowing that he's Iranian and all of that. And so each of their stories talk about what it's like to be gay in 3 different time periods, basically, and then each of them also leave their countries. All of their stories are really interconnected as well. Not only do they find things out about just their family in general and their family history and all of that, but it's even stuff like in his dad's chapters from when he's young, he is constantly reading poetry, but in Mood's chapters, he goes like, wait, my dad knows that poem? Like, I don't recall my dad ever being into poetry. So you know that at some point his dad must have stopped being into poetry, and so you start like wondering how that happened. And so then you find out later, or his grandfather teaches music, and then it's like at the very end of the book, basically in like the last chapter of his, you find out what his motivations actually were for becoming a teacher and all of that. And so it's all really interconnected, and it all comes together to make the whole story. And when at the very end they basically all are on the same page finally, once it's all come out like together, they've all talked about everything together for the first time, and it's such a beautiful story, and I have a lot more thoughts about it too. Even just stuff like the fact that a Gugush song is referenced that happens to be my favorite one, and how weird it is that Ayatollah Khomeini was actually he was back then considered the more like progressive alternative, which is really strange to think about because of course he's not, like nothing about him is progressive, but back then everyone thought that he was such a more progressive alternative than the Shah. And so it kind of shows that, like, of course, politicians have been lying forever. This is not new. I have a lot of thoughts about this book in general. It'll all be in my full review. So I also read A Whole Song and Dance by Sarvanaz Tash. This is about an Iranian girl who gets into NYU for drama, and her parents think she got in for business, and she intends to tell them the truth right away, but as soon as she opens her mouth to say that she got in, they're like, oh, you got in for business? Thank goodness you didn't apply for drama. We were kind of worried. And they just like automatically assume. And so every time she tries to tell them the truth, like through her whole first year there too, like she's already at NYU studying drama, and she's still telling them like, yeah, business studies are going great, and it's so scary. Like, she's chickening out every time she tries to tell them the truth, because of course the longer you get into a lie, like the harder it is to tell the truth. And all the characters in this were great. All the they're all basically almost all the characters in this are people of color. Not only is she like at NYU studying drama and telling her parents that she's studying business, but she also gets an actual acting gig on a web show, and that is something that like it could turn into an actual opportunity, and then it does, but then she's like, do I really want to do that, because it means giving up all this other stuff like school. And so it's kind of like a I've definitely been there, like as a musician, and all of that. Like you definitely get, stuff that you think you want to do because it's an opportunity or because like you're getting paid and all of that. But it's like, do you really want to do it? And the right thing to do isn't always the most obvious thing either. So this arc was provided to me by Colored Pages Book Tours, which I was a part of for this. And it is, this book comes out tomorrow, so definitely check it out. It's so good. And also it's full of theater references, and it's so funny the whole way through, and I could not put it down. So now I'm going to just really quickly try to, as quickly as possible, get through all the books that I don't have as many thoughts on. So Utopia for Realists, this is a super quick read about basically what a utopia is, why we don't have one, why it is needed to be like hoping for a utopia, and then like real examples of stuff that makes our society actually the equivalent of what would have been considered a utopia when you think about things like medical advancements and everything that everyone thought a utopia would have. But at the same time, like it also shows stuff like every time they've tested universal basic income among like a select group of people or in a specific country or anything like that, and people have so much better lives. Even if they're not working any less, they're spending way more time with their kids because they're not stressing about money and that type of thing. And it totally makes sense, because like how much time, I thought about how much time I've spent just worrying about money, like how am I going to pay for this or that, blah blah blah. And it's true, like we waste a lot of time like worrying about how we're going to pay for something, or how can we make this amount of money in time for this, that type of thing. And yeah, so it was definitely a really interesting read. And also the author is not US based, and he's not UK based either. I forget where he's actually from, but so it was kind of interesting that he kind of involved like the whole world in all the examples. Then I also read January 15th by Rachel Swirsky. This is basically a speculative fiction about people getting their universal basic income and all of that, and it follows 4 different people who, on the day that they're getting their universal basic income, and I thought this was going to be really fascinating, but it really did not do anything that I wanted it to do. It was actually pretty boring. There's no real reason why we're following the particular people we're following at all. There's no actual emotion there either. We're kind of just told what people think about something and whatever, but without really being shown it or shown why or anything. And all the dialogue was kind of for no reason, and just everything that happened in it had like no real point at all. And so I feel like this book wasn't really making the point it was trying to make. Like this book was written, in the foreword of this, like the book, it says the book was written for essentially the purpose of examining who a universal basic income would help and how, and basically none of how the universal basic income works is in this book is at all how it would actually work, or how it has actually worked in any country, because like basically everyone gets their entire year's worth of universal basic income in one day in this book, which is really weird, and that's not how it would work at all. And just the whole thing just makes absolutely no sense, and I don't know, like there wasn't really anything like bad about this book. It was just the fact that it didn't do at all what I thought it was going to do, or what it would have like. It didn't make a point. It really didn't make a point at all, and it was trying to. So I just don't understand. How to Tell If Your Cat is Plotting to Kill You. This is obviously about how to tell if your cat is plotting to kill you. It has some funny stuff in it and all of that about cats and just what their inner monologue may sound like and everything. And I don't know, it's just basically supposed to be vaguely humorous, and I enjoyed reading it. The Girl Who Fell into Myth by Kay Kenyon. This is a portal fantasy about a girl who goes to another world that she knows that her parents were from and everything, but they didn't really tell her about it, but she's just like vaguely aware that it exists. So she ends up having to go back there. She's never been there before, and apparently it's like a huge crime to have a kid in a different world and not bring them back to that world. So basically everyone like treats her like she's some kind of traitor for growing up in a different world, as if it's like her fault. And it's definitely really weird. So this was really interesting. Like if you're in the mood for like a portal fantasy with like multiple love interests and dragons and all this stuff, like it's definitely, you know, it's definitely good, but it's also like, it also didn't have a whole lot of depth. Like the villain is kind of just bad, like just plain old bad, and we don't know why really. People kind of like change their loyalties on the flip of a coin pretty much, and it makes for very weak characters that way. They didn't really have a motivation for changing. It's just like they just didn't really have, I don't know, it was just really odd. So overall, even though I liked this book, I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to. Also, there are Nazis in this book. Like literally, people in this world have become Nazis by being influenced by like our world, and still the main character says, like, when she's trying to explain Nazism to someone from that world, she's like, she says like, oh, there used to be blah blah blah, and I kind of felt like that ignores the fact that there really are still Nazis, and I don't know, so it just kind of made me feel weird, someone referring to Nazis in the past tense. When The Girl of Fire and Thorns stories, this is basically 3 stories following 3 totally different plot lines that are basically set in the world of The Girl of Fire and Thorns. You don't have to, I was kind of happy to see that I basically understood what was going on from having just read the first book. I haven't read the whole series. And so basically the first 2 stories were nothing that interesting to me, but the third one was really, really good. So it was kind of hard to give this a rating. It was just kind of funny to me because I was really, really entertained by the last one, but the first 2 were kind of like, okay, like whatever. But anyway, definitely worth reading for sure if you've read this series, or even if you're like me and you've only read the first book, and it definitely made me want to read the rest of the series too. And last but not least, The Novice by Taran Matharu. This is about a boy who basically he's like a poor village boy, and he finds out that he can summon demons, and then he ends up going to school to become a battle mage. So overall, this kind of like a couple of the other books that I read this month, it didn't have the character depth that I was expecting, but I did like the fact that there was no love interest in this at all, because I feel like, I mean, yeah, it's the first in a series and everything, so maybe it's like too like early to have that, but I kind of appreciated the fact that it didn't, and that there was no love interest. And so definitely if you're looking for any kind of like magic school vibes, I definitely really think that this is a pretty good book. So anyway, those are the books that I read in March. If you've read any of these, have any thoughts on them, etc., etc., please leave a comment, and thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!